And we're good to go. So yes, Kendo UI for Angular. We can see your slide. Perfect. Thanks, Josh. So as I said before, my name is Alyssa Nicoll, at Alyssa Nicoll on Twitter. My DM is always open. You don't even have to follow me. Just ping me with questions. We also have Carl. Carl is my cohort and crime. And hello, welcome, Luca. And he knows literally anything there is to know about Kendo UI. I'm pretty comfortable in saying that. So Kendo UI, for those of you who don't know, is a component library, but it's not only an Angular. Of course, you're probably here for the Angulars. I'm here for the Angulars. But it's also React, Vue, and jQuery. Haters don't hate. And so Carl knows literally everything there is to know about all those things. So don't feel like you have to hold your questions at any point. If you're like, what about this feature? What about this component? How does that work? Just plop them in the chat as you see fit, and Carl will get to them. Or if you think of something afterwards, which often happens to me at a conference or at a session, ping either of us on the Twitters. You can go ahead and DM us your questions and we'll be there for you. And Kendo UI, of course, is the official Kendo UI for Angular account that you can follow for things like updates and webinars and things like that. Check it out. I would be remiss if I did not mention Code It Live. As I mentioned during setup, I do stream quite often on Code It Live, as well as my other fellow advocates. And it's twitch.tv/Code It Live. We do things literally from like Xamarin and Maui and .NET side of life, all the way to the Angular, React, JavaScript side of life. And it's a ton of fun. So definitely check it out. Follow us on there. Every Wednesday, I do UI Wednesdays, where I talk about UI and UX issues and tackle any CSS challenges. So definitely check out Code It Live. It's it's a good time. And I am on 2 different podcasts. It used to be 3, and I was like, this is crazy. But yes, every week I am on Angular Air and Adventures in Angular. So check those out. They have RSS feeds. One of them, Angular Air, is actually video, which is really cool because panelists can share their code that they're coming on to talk about. And the other one is a normal audio only podcast. So check those out if you're into the podcasts. Recently, October 19th through the 23rd, we had DevReach, which is a conference that Progress holds. And usually it's live in Bulgaria. This year actually was obviously not live, but it was really, really unique. And I invited, if you're into the Angular community, you might know some of these names. I invited quite a few of my friends from the Angular influencer space to come on and do an Angular relay. And so that you can actually find on our Kendo UI YouTube channel, or you can find it on our Twitch recordings, just at Code It Live. But it was a really, really cool relay. It was super fast paced. I was like, all right, I want all of you to come on. And in, I think it was like 25 minutes each, I want you all to do a personal interview. So I asked some questions, kind of got to know, because a lot of these people like John Papa or Stephen Fluent or Deborah Carrata, we might know them from the community, but we might not know a lot about them personally. So the first half of the videos are all going to be like personal interviews. And the second half is them just adding whatever they wanted to the Tour of Heroes application that I'd modified, which luckily for all of you, we are actually going to be working on today. And if you don't like pink or My Little Ponies, I'm just gonna apologize right now. That's just like my warning. So check out the recordings from DevReach. They were really cool. And if you didn't know, tell me in the chat, how many of you were at the Angular update party? So I was actually talking to the Angular team. I am a GDE, which means Google Developer Expert. And what that means is I'm an advocate for Angular, but I'm not paid. And so it's a really cool list of people they have on the GDE's list, but it kind of, along with like doing things for the community, we get kind of feedback directly from the team on what's going down. And so I'm really curious, were anybody like, shout out in the chat if you're actually at the update party, because that's something the DevRel team over at Angular is they're working on right now. They want to really create more, even though, pandemic and we can't be together with conferences, they want to create more of a connection and a stronger tie to the community right now. And so one of their ways was with the recently V11 update to have an update party. And so we did they had a keynote on their channel with a Q&A. So check out those links to the right or left. I can't really spatially, they're on the side. And then on the bottom is our Kendo UI TV channel. That's the YouTube channel I was referring to. That was where I kind of invited some Angular team members and community members to hop on and chat a little bit about V11. So you can check out those recordings. But yeah, I'm really curious if anybody, doesn't seem like anybody's shout out that they were at the update party. Maybe it wasn't very well advertised, but I think it was popular enough that it'll be around for V12. So keep an eye out for that. Definitely. Yes. And today we will be working in the VS codes. At least I will be. I would love to hear, does anybody who's with us today not use VS Code? I have a friend who, what was it? Was it Firestorm or something like that? That he swears by, but everyone else who I've met who develops in Angular loves VS Code. So if you want to try out Kendo UI, I would suggest this Kendo VS Code extension that you can find. And I think we're ready to talk about the library itself. So, but feel free to chat, ask your questions. Don't be shy. Don't be shy, attendees. The first thing I want to talk about, native UI components built for Angular. So as I said, if you were there for the webinar, you can pretty much tune out for this portion. I want to give just a generic, very high level overview of Kendo UI before we jump into some code examples and just using it, what it's like, talking about it. So 70 plus UI components. Yeah, and built from the ground up for Angular. As I said, we have many flavors of Kendo UI, but the Angular flavor is built up from the ground up for Angular, a comprehensive set of UI scenarios. And this includes things like data grids, which our grid is like the most popular component, scheduler, form elements, which we'll get into, drop downs, things like that, and an intuitive API, which I will walk us through some of our docs in a minute, but it really is very intuitive, and I've enjoyed using it over the last few years. And we do have tree shaking and AOT support, so that's very neat. Design language integration. So we have support for 3 themes: material design, Bootstrap, and of course our own Kendo UI design language. And I actually, as one of our, I call them challenges. I don't know what other workshop people, this is, welcome to my first workshop. This is my first official workshop. I've done talks around the world, like I think over 40 talks internationally to different countries. But I've never done a workshop. So this is my first. Welcome to this journey. But we are actually going to be doing a challenge and later on around theming. So that should be, I'm so excited about that. And if ever at any point you're like, Alyssa, this challenge is too hard, like just tell me that. Like seriously, let's easily customize with online theme builder, which we will be showing off very soon. If you haven't used our theme builder, it's awesome. I love it. And SAS-based themes with variables to make it your own, which allows, I was actually talking with someone who's being interested in using Kendo UI, and they worked at a company that had, they had, as probably many of you are familiar with, multiple frameworks and libraries being used. So not just Angular, like they had React apps as well and Vue apps as well. And they wanted to talk about creating a like overarching brand theme for their company that integrated with Kendo UI on all those levels. And because, we do support SAS-based themes, you can use SAS and have your like company generic variables that trickle down to all of our components on every project. So that's really, really cool. Augment your existing UI stack. So components can be included one at a time, which is great because not many people need all 70. I mean, that would be impressive if like day one you wanted to implement all 70 components, but wow. So yes, you can do them one at a time, only as you need them. And we'll talk a little bit about that with the setup process for each component, as well as whenever you're using themes and styles and importing those things, because I've often heard it said back in the Angular JS days, people would really complain, about Angular and it being awful. And it was really just the way that they were using Angular that was awful. I don't know if this is ringing any bells with anybody, but there are ways that you can make sure that you're enabling tree shaking to do its best and that you're only using or importing the components and themes that you need. So I really do love that. And our docs walk you through a lot of that as well. We coexist nicely with other UI libraries. I once did a talk called Giving Bootstrap the Boot. It was probably my most controversial talk I've ever given. It was literally I got a ton of hate and a ton of love from that. And so either people were like, yes, 100%, I feel you on the bootstrap pain, or they were like, bootstrap is life. What are you talking about? So something that I've really, really enjoyed about Kendo UI is how easy it is to customize and how very few important tags are used across the components, because that was one of my pains that I had with Bootstrap. And so we're conscious of specificity and we are only as specific as we need to be. And that really allows you to bring in your own custom styles or other libraries to integrate well with us. So no need to rip and replace. Let's get on to accessibility. And I feel like the chat is just really quiet right now. So, just say hi or pop in your favorite emoji or, whatever you feel like. Accessibility compliance. Hey, Nathan, thanks. You make me feel not so alone. Hey, Kedar. Accessibility is in the foundation of Kendo UI for Angular. We offer compliance for Section 508, WCAG, and YARIA. Accessibility issues are treated with high severity. And actually, I'll go back to this one. I can vouch for. We do take accessibility super seriously, and we have a feedback portal. The feedback portal is not just for accessible issues. It's for really any issue that you have or any feature or component request that you have. And so I'll have a link to that later on, but it's been neat working over the past couple of years with the Kendo UI team and along with the Angular team, and just seeing how they really do take community feedback and integrate it as soon as they can with their next roadmap plan. And so definitely reach out if you find issues or run into anything. So legendary technical support. So we have a support ticketing system and phone assistance, which I know for larger teams is really, really valuable. Or smaller teams, actually. Any size team, but if you have a massive team, our technical support is killer. A 94% customer satisfaction rate and a direct line of communication with the Kendo UI for Angular devs. And those are the devs that I was just now referring to, where I've seen just how serious they take customer feedback, and how even this morning we were on a call and they were interjecting with, no, we had a client that really did request this. This is important. And so, yeah, I love it. I love our feedback loop. Strong feedback loop to add features and components, and a roadmap driven by feedback through the feedback portal and support. Yes, so kendoui.com is the link you need. Throwing in this tired and true emoji since Zoom doesn't does their own formatting. Tried and true, not tired. It's a tired and true emoji, Carl. I don't know. I don't know if any of you had a long weekend, but mine was a long weekend. Here we are. It's not quite mush. So you get not quite mush brain from Alyssa. But kendoui.com. I want to actually give some links out right now. And I think we might be ready. I'm going to stop sharing that. And let's see. Oh, almost. We're almost ready for our first demo. Let me grab. So the application that I'd mentioned earlier during the Angular relay is called, well, it is the Tour of Hero application that John Papa wrote and that the Angular docs actually go into for a lot of like questions or details. And so here, trying to find, I have a quick link, which finding the quick link is like becoming longer than just getting the long link. So I'm going to give it to you all. Zoom chat. I can't find the emoji feature either. Is it a feature? Are we like doing Zoom wrong? I mean, both, okay, Kadar and Carl, you both have emojis, but did you like go and copy them off the internet? Okay. Here, my friends, is the Tour of Heroes project, and we won't be using it quite yet. And my first demo is actually in a Stack Blitz, but I'm going to need you, or I mean, you don't have to, you can just like visually watch as I do things and skip challenges if you don't feel like it. But if you want to do the challenges, there's a couple. You want to clone down that project, run npm install, make sure you can ng-serve, control command spacebar for Mac shows the emoji keyboard. Ah, look at you, brilliant person. So yes, check out the repo. We will have, I think we'll have one, if not, hang on, let me check the old agenda. I think we'll have one, if not two breaks, just one, maybe. So you have time to download and install, but would suggest, you know, hopping on that. Let's go ahead and doop file share. And then we're going to go to screen sharing. I have a couple more things to talk about. We talked about the 70 plus UI components built from the ground up for Angular, the design language support, as well as accessibility compliance, and our professional support and awesome feedback loop. So yes, kendoui.com. I will has a link. That's all correct English to you for my shortcut into the docs. Now you're like, why do you need a shortcut? We have a development branch version of our docs that I like to browse, but you don't have to. You don't have to. You can go to our normal docs. But I wanted to talk about, this is actually a slide from one of our latest webinars. And this was another one from one of our latest webinars. We do webinars quarterly on the latest components and the latest features. And we do a really fun, usually me and our React advocate will pair up for the webinar, and it's like half Angular, half React, but sometimes we invite the .NET people. But yes, I definitely recommend these webinars. This is where you get the latest and greatest. And I think just following, if you're a current existing customer, you should be on the email chain for these. But I think just following at Kendo UI can also make sure that you have access. So yeah, check out the Twitters. Forms guide. I think, let's see. The form demo is the first demo that I want to talk about. And boop, 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 boop. Trying to think if I want to do that first. Yeah, I think we can. We can jump over to the forms demo. Let's first, I want to talk about the form guide, which was actually announced at one of those webinars I was talking about recently. And it is a guide that was created by the team that's not only if you're using like Kendo UI components, but it's also useful just in general for building the best possible forms that you can and being conscious of different issues that can arise, accessibility, things like that. So that is the link to our forms guide. Something, I love it because sometimes it can be overwhelming. I mean, you think 70 plus components. How many of those are classified as like a form component? Like really any input, really any button, right? We've got so many. So I'm going to go over a couple of those before I hop into our form demo. But that form guide in our docs is great because it kind of shows you some really great examples of integration with like all of those components playing nicely in a form. So yes, we have labels. We do. We have a normal label as you'd expect, as well as a floating label, which is where the label is a placeholder. Click into it and it transitions nicely into a normal label. We obviously have CLI support. So if you wanted to right now in your project, you go ng-add @progress/kendo-angular-labels. And that is the heart and soul of installation for V6 Angular apps or later. So labels, inputs, forms, or not forms, buttons, anything like that, it's going to just change kendo-angular- the thing you're looking for. But yes, and then of course, importing your modules where you need them. So we also have inputs. These range from color pickers and range sliders to normal like text buttons or text boxes and radio buttons. And same type of deal. When you're building a form, it would be very, very normal to see an import not only for your label module, but for your imports module. And the text box specifically, I wanted to highlight because she's one of our newest. And you might be thinking, really? A text box is one of your newest components? Well, beyond ensuring a consistent look and feel across all your form elements, we didn't just do your average text box. You can do things like adornments, which I'll show off in a minute. But the text box, along with all of those inputs, is packaged nicely underneath Kendo-Angular-inputs. So yes, it even has things like validation icons, and we'll talk a little bit in my form demo about adding things like errors and hints that kind of belong to your input and appear when something goes wrong. So form components, right? Date inputs. So I think we might have just gotten to a point where we were like, this is a lot of inputs. We have too many inputs. So if you're looking for date inputs specifically, they are going to be packaged under date dash or Angular dash date inputs instead of just the normal inputs. And they include things like a calendar or a multi-calendar view where you can like actually have the pop-up where your date selection and navigating through months. Date inputs, date pickers, date ranges, time pickers, all those are underneath the date inputs. Yes, the last one, the button. I was a little confused. If you go to that forms guide that we talked about, and that I shared the link, and I can grab that link for you if you're sweating it. But if you go to the forms guide, you will see that some of the examples, they don't like import the buttons module. There is no buttons module, and yet there's a submit button on the form, and you're like, wait, what? How is possible? So you don't actually need to import the button module for a simple button on your form. You can always just use the styles that are already imported because you've imported Kendo UI, you have our theme. So you can just go ahead and on your submit button, throw a K- button, and it's going to style that. So there are reasons, and we have other buttons like a button group or a split button, drop downs, things like that, that do belong in forms or outside of forms. But sometimes you just need the simple submit button and you don't need to import our module, and we don't suggest that you do. But if you want additional configuration options, or you want one of the other buttons listed below, we do have that package. So yes, any questions, feel free to chime in. I'm going to be beveraging occasionally. I highly suggest you stay hydrated. I think we're ready for the forms demo, which I do have. I have written down, you're going to see my agenda. It's gorgeous. You all are going to love it. If I don't get Pog Champs in the chat, I'll be very upset. I use tape, colorful tape, which I don't even know if it's like my lights are like washing it all out. But I used colorful tape and I outlined our agenda. It's very official. Highly suggest, because you can move the tape around, right? Like, I know, I'm very high tech. But yes, it says here on the agenda we have a forms demo next, which we can jump into. And yeah, ask your questions as we go. I'm going to share a different thingamabob, and that is of course short for screen. Okay. So yeah, has anybody, while I am finding our Stackblitz for this demo, has anybody tried Angular 11? Are you all up with the times? Have you installed it? I did it for the Tour of Heroes app that I shared, and I think it took 3 minutes. It was like crazy fast. It was like 3 minutes, and I had some dependencies that were like yelling at me, and they were like, "Wait, we need our old Angular back." So just ran ng update for those, but it was super fast and super flawless. Let's see. I'm seeing nobody in the chat, so I'm just assuming that you're all on V10. That's where my brain goes. Okay, here is our demo start. So I'm going to share this with you and let me know. I've not tried 11 yet. I know it was. If you've had half of a crazy week as I have, I would be right there with you with like not having time to try it yet. But they were like, "Hey, Alyssa, can you run a session for us on our update party?" And I was like, "Yeah, I should probably try to update." So it was pretty flawless. Here is Stackblitz starting point. You can follow along. I'm going to make some adjustments to that gorgeousness. Let me know if you can't access it, and I will go into settings and change the permissions so that you can. Yeah, to all panelists. Good. You should have that. You should see it. You should know it. You should love it. I see it. It works. Perfect, Josh. Thank you. Thank you, darling. Okay. But seriously, chat's too quiet. I'm not seeing it. Oh no. Oh no. Jane, let me know if it doesn't work for you still, and I can try some magic, but I am going, I'm not screen sharing if that's what you're expecting. I was just, I will, but I was just waiting to see if you're curious. I'm using Chrome to look at it. Yeah, are you using Chrome? I've only ever tested these things in Chrome. So if any of you are on some other suspicious business, I guess other browsers are okay. I shouldn't hate on them. Okay, let's share my screen. And I think it's this screen. Pretty positive. I'm pretty positive. All right. I wonder if my link didn't go through to all the panelists. Alrighty. So here is the gorgeousness itself. This is from our forms guide, and I'm actually going to take you on a journey. So if we go to Grid on Development branch, and I'm going to go and actually grab this link for you because this is a shortcut link to our grid, which we're not talking about at this moment of our lives. We will very shortly. But I always like to bookmark. This part is not important. I like to bookmark this in my bookmarks because of the dash develop. And so the latest and greatest will be on the dash develop branch. But if we take out develop, it should be the same thing, right? And we also are using stack blitzes for all of our demos throughout our docs, which is like mwah, beautiful, that you can super easily edit and modify. So I'm going to do a little documentation intro, and then we'll go back over to this gorgeousness and start poking around like this at the inputs. So yes, bookmark that that link straight away into the docs. Over here, as I was talking about earlier, whenever I was first getting started with Kendo UI, I was a little overwhelmed because there were so many components. And when I went to npm install or ng add or whatever I was going to do with them, I was like, okay, I just need an input. How do I get the input? And so, or I just need a button. How do I get the button? Or I need a drop down, and if you try to ng add a kendo-angular drop down, you won't get the drop down. So over here in our docs on the left-hand side, we have a tree of our components, and all of these big parent guys are the thing that you're going to want to install. So if we go into buttons and look at overview, these are the buttons that we were talking about. And I can actually bump this up a bit for screen sharing abilities. These are the buttons, and you can go into each one to look at their specific docs and the APIs around those. But if you scroll down on every single overview page, we have Alyssa's favorite section. I know it's probably like silly, but it is. It's one of my favorite sections in our docs, just because of how straightforward and easy it is to explain this part. And so, as I mentioned, we have ng-add, and you can find that ng-add command under, like if we go to charts and we go to getting started, scroll down to installation, you can find that command and copy it quickly for your terminals. But sometimes either your project's not in v6 or later, or maybe you're one of those cool projects that have not just one module, but you have a ton of different modules, feature modules, and you would like to manually install the component and then add the import into the feature module where it belongs, right? And so I really do love that we walk you through this and that we show you the ng-add command, as well as down here, if you're doing the manual setup, the npm install, like not just the button itself, but the dependencies that that button package is going to need. And then, of course, we show an example of importing that in whatever module you'll need. So super, super easy setup, I think. Let me know if that's not what you found.